Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is when you peek in on this. Welcome and thank you very much for coming to, I don't know, 11, 12, 13. I'm giving up on counting because I'm so inconsistent at this. But I'm back and thank you for being here with me for those of you who are still around. Uh, I'm going to go in a different direction. Going to be working off of some notes here, but I'm going to be talking about a few different things bouncing around. Um, it's hard to believe, given how I was as a young man about going to church. You could never find me there. I always tried to avoid it where I could. And when I got there, I tried to get out as quickly as I can. But I'm Catholic and I go to church every Sunday. And my wife is in the choir. So at the 10 o'clock Mass, I'm I'm sitting watching Mass and watching the choir. So I get to watch people as they walk in. And I'm always fascinated by how people react when they walk into Mass. You can tell those people who are at church for the first or second time because they're sort of looking around, going like, okay, what's here? What's there? What's that? But the ones that really fascinate me are the couples who walk in. You can clearly tell that it is almost always the guy who is there at the request of the lady. And it is fun to watch because, we guys are sort of torpe. We don't always pay attention to how we're reacting to things. And it's always fun to watch a newbie walk into a Catholic Mass because they're turning around and looking at the girl like, what's this? What's that? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And I can sit here and tell you that most Catholics can't tell you why we're doing it. We know what it is we're doing, but we're not always sure why we're doing it. But in terms of the standing and the sitting and the kneeling, eh, basically we're doing that to stay awake. That is really what it is. Um, Back in the day, church used to last for a long time, and to ask people to stay in one position for that long time, well, inevitably people fell asleep. So they figured standing, kneeling, sitting, that would cure that issue. Now, I also sometimes end up being a lector. That's someone who does one of the readings. And when I do those readings, I do that at the 6:30 Mass. The 6:30 Mass is so much. I think the British use the word pace when they're talking about the speed of the game. 6:30 Masses have pace. I compare it to the 10 o'clock Mass where the choir is at. In the 6:30 Mass, we're already done reading the gospel by the time they are getting to the first reading at the 10 a.m. Mass. So I've come to realize I think people show up to the 6:30 Mass maybe because they need an early start to the day, but I suspect a lot of them don't want to stay there any longer than they have to. Okay, now, 2-year-old granddaughter was up here over the weekend, and she hung around with her uncles, my sons, and they reinforced on her all the bad things she's probably learned from her little cousins. Like, she found it really fun if you throw a Santa Claus stuffed doll at her, she just thinks it's great. And I found out how well she could communicate when one son threw the doll at the other son, and then the second son picked up the doll and threw it at the granddaughter. Oh, she just thought that was the greatest thing. And when she threw the doll back at the first son, she pointed to the second son like, hey, throw it to him, throw it to him. And I watched this go on. And I also learned that she knows all about the 5-second rule when eating. She was eating a piece of pizza and some of it slid off on the floor. And I watched her. She had no trouble reaching down, picking it up. And I could hear my sons yelling at her, yeah, there's a 5-second rule. You're good. You're good. So that went that went well. Now, what what's going on with me? Okay, last time I talked about having being diagnosed with prostate cancer and having to wear a catheter. Uh, I have found that wearing the catheter leads to some rather comical moments. In that, sometimes I run into the men's room and start unzipping my pants like I'm actually going to take, like I'm going to do something, when I realize, no, I don't have that. Everything empties into a urine bag, and made jokes with that too. I walk around, I'm waiting for someone to tick me off so I can just dump a whole bag on them. But in the process of determining whether or not I had cancer, when I went to for the MRI, the doctor or the technician injected me with, as he put it, irradiated glucose solution, so that the machine could read what was going on. And at the end of it, when I was getting ready to leave, he gave me some gloves, and I looked at him, and he says, "You're going to have to empty your urine bag, and the urine's going to be radiated." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I never thought about that." So it goes without saying that I waited till it got dark and then checked the bag to see if it was glowing. Nah, nothing at all like that. Oh, but the first time, when I first had the catheter inserted and I had to use a urine bag, I remember that I drank some Gatorade because I was dying of thirst. And I remember later on that day looking at the bag before I emptied it, and it was red. And I was like, God, I hope that's the Gatorade, because if it's blood, I'm in trouble. It was the Gatorade. Nothing ever came up again. Oh, also, there is this issue called bladder spasms. The one thing I discovered right away about the catheter was this: you don't feel anything really. You don't feel when you're urinating, nothing at all. It's just all of a sudden you feel the bag is filling up, and it's like, okay, empty it. But the thing about a bladder spasm, the first time I felt one, I was in a meeting with my boss and a parent. I'm a teacher, and the principal was there and a parent, and all of a sudden I felt this sensation, and it felt like I was urinating. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not happening because I got the catheter. But it was bad enough that it made me look down just to make sure there was no leak. And I ended up having to get up and walk around, because the sensation is when, like for guys, it's like when you feel you have to take a whiz, and this is not the place, and you're sitting there holding it and you're suffering that pain. That's what it feels like, except nothing is happening. So I learned about those, and I get those now about 4 or 5 times a day. All I know is that when I get them, I have to get up and walk around. It's just the oddest feeling. And that's the thing about this prostate cancer for me. I know I have it because they told me I have it. But if it weren't for the fact that I have a catheter, there's no inconvenience. And I take a pill once a night, and I get a injection once a month. And it's like I said before, how bad can it be? But anyway, that's where that's at. Now, I am going to get to my chale con ese pedo section. And this is all about politics. And I'm going to cut right to the chase. This is right now about, they're coming up with these documents in Biden's possession that are classified top secret. And everybody is sitting there wringing their hands like, oh my God, look, he should be embarrassed. This shouldn't be happening. And the Republicans are trying to run up his rear end going, oh, we want to know who was there, who signed in, who did this. Hey, Democrats, back it up a step. That senator who says this is an embarrassment, yeah, it's an embarrassment, but so what? You don't see the Republican Party sitting there fretting over the fact that there were well over 300 documents that they had to take from their president. Man, Cowboy up, get to the bar, look at the Republicans and tell them to stick it in their ear. Enough of this nonsense of apologizing for it. Um, Here, let's go to this. I even did the research for this. Here are the given facts. Biden, classified documents were found in a private audit at his residence and at an office that he worked at. Okay, they immediately contacted the National Archives and turned them in and let it and gave them up. Okay, the lawyers reported the discovery of the files. They were found in a locked closet in his office, Washington think tank of the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Then another batch was found in a locked storage space in his garage. And they were stored material and then they found another set in stored materials in an adjacent room. Okay, now every time they've been found, National Archives has been notified. Everybody in town has been told about it. Let's go to Trump. He hoarded his documents at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, and the documents found in Biden's possession were documents that were taken were left there when he stopped being vice president, which was 4 or 5 years ago. The National Archives doesn't even know they're missing. Okay, we got that set. No one said, Biden, hey, send us those documents. We know you have them. No one even knew he had them. When they were found, they were told about them. Here, let's go to our boy Trump. He hoarded those documents. He resisted repeated efforts to retrieve those documents. At one point, they said, let me see. I'm reading my notes and they're sort of sloppy, so give me a moment. Several government files marked classified. Several hundred government files marked classified, plus thousands of unclassified documents. So we're not talking 3 or 4 or 5, we're talking thousands of documents, of which hundreds were classified top secret. But you don't hear the Republicans talking about that. You don't see them acting embarrassed and outraged that, oh, look what you did. You should have done better. You don't hear any of that. Okay. They were cartons locked in a storage closet. Then FBI discovered more in Trump's office, including his desk. Okay. In 2021, the National Archives realized that historically prominent files were missing, and they requested Trump to return them. They retrieved 15 cases, including classified documents. They realized he had more, and they issued a subpoena to retrieve even more. Now, at this point, Trump's representative falsely stated, hey, we've complied fully with everything they've asked of them. They knew they had evidence that there was more there. A search warrant was issued, and that's when that famous raid on Mar-a-Lago was implemented. Now, the Republicans are all in outrage about the fact that, oh, how dare they do that to our God? But the fact of the matter is no one ever said anything was illegal about it. They were just outraged that they did it. No Republican ever commented on the fact that the would-be dictator had documents there. They never commented on it. They just glossed it over. So now here we come with this. They have found some with Biden, and his lawyers are finding them and letting everybody know. Oh, I'm sorry. And the Republicans are also outraged that they found out about this, I think in November, and didn't say anything till, after the midterm elections. Well, tough titty, tough shit. You guys don't play at all fair. You guys lie. You don't even have a news machine. You have the Fox propaganda machine and all the other idiots who run with it. Because I've come to realize that when you talk to any Republican who is willing to talk politics, the only reason they're willing to speak it is because they are just parroting the Fox line. I have yet to run into a conservative, someone who calls themselves a Republican, who has a thought independent of Fox. And yeah, I am full deep into MSNBC, but at least we make sense. And, you know, that's all I have to say about that for this moment. Basically, hey, Democrats, suck it up. Look the Republicans in the eye and tell them, bring it on. Because that clown show that is running the Congress, oh, they're going to be chasing around they're going to be chasing around their tails to get at you guys. This is your best chance to shut it down. Very simply, people, you get somebody who challenges you on the fact that Biden has documents, just tell them, hey, we're talking about thousands versus very few. We're talking about someone who resisted giving them up versus a group that is notifying people, hey, we have them, come take them. This is the Republicans are going to be blowing this up. They're going to be blowing this up. And if you have any Republicans come at you over it, just shut them down. Don't even deal with them. All right. Hey, thank you for these few minutes. I had to jump on it because the news is getting way ahead of me quicker than I can handle it. Thank you very much for hanging in there. Take care.